High temperatures are kind of bringing its own stress to calves, I suppose, or offering shelter as best we possibly can. So there's not much grazing happening during the days. If you go down the field there, anytime when the sun is up, calves are in under the ditch. They're in as tight as they can to the ditch for a bit of shelter. So I suppose trying to keep grass ahead of them, that's correct for them, that they'll eat once the temperatures cool down. Some calves have come off ration. There's about 250 calves still on ration, and we probably will keep ration into them for the remainder of the summer.
Hello and welcome to The Beef Edge, the Teagasc Beef podcast for all your latest news, information and advice for Irish beef farmers. I'm Catherine Egan, and on this week's episode, I'm joined by Teagasc Technologist to the Tipperary dairy calf to beef demonstration farm, Chloe Millar, to get an update on the farm and an insight into the National Open Day taking place on the farm on Wednesday the 22nd of July at 11am. Chloe, you're very welcome. Can you tell listeners about the Tipperary dairy calf to beef demonstration farm?
Yeah, so the farm was set up in April 2022. It's a demonstration dairy calf to beef farm. So essentially we're taking calves in from 2 weeks of age, and anything that we bring in on farm stays on farm and finishes at slaughter. So it's calf to beef. It's a steer and heifer system. I suppose the farm itself operates as a standalone commercial unit under Ballyvedon Beef Farm Limited. So Ballyvedon Beef Farm Limited is made up of two shareholders, Dawn Meats and Shinnock Estates. So Dawn Meats is one of the biggest beef processors in the country, and Shinnock Estates is owned by the West Cork Co-ops. So essentially what we have is a beef processor and a dairy processor in a 50-50 share as one independent commercial unit.
And as part of the farm, you're purchasing over 400 calves annually, Chloe. What are the key criteria that you're looking for when you're sourcing calves, or how important are genetics when you're determining how that calf is going to perform over the lifetime?
Genetics is probably one of the most important parts for us, okay? So essentially what we want is a healthy, high CBV calf. So with that, I suppose we have 9 source dairy farms that we buy off, and we've been working with these since we started in 2022. So with this, we work with them, we sit down with them before the breeding season, sometime in January. We sit down and we meet on criteria such as calving difficulty, and then certain types of bulls that we would like them to use. So with that, we ask them to use a certain type of bull, and we will purchase back the progeny from that bull then. So genetics, look, we have a fair idea now what we can expect in spring 2027 through talking to the dairy farmers and also through their scan results that we can find on ICBF. So communication is also massive on this, but ultimately we want a healthy, high CBV calf.
Chloe, you mentioned there, calf health, that's really critical from the very beginning. What are the key health protocols that you follow when calves arrive on farm to minimise any disease risk and to maximise thrive?
Yeah, so look, I suppose we can go back a step on this. We can go back before they even get to us here on farm. We have strong communication with our source farmers. If there's any issues with the dairy farms or on farm there, we can highlight that before those certain calves come to us. Ultimately, we never really have any issues. We've been very lucky in in the number of springs that we have under the belt here. I suppose when calves come on farm, we're not isolating calves to their source farms. Calves are mixed on the lorry coming to us. So what we'll do is a visual health check on all calves, check navels, ears, are the ears down, if there's any discharge from the eyes or nose. If there is, we'll just keep a record of this. And what we'll do is weigh all calves before they're assigned to their pen. So once they're in their pen and they've been weighed, every calf will get 2 litres of electrolytes. Some of these calves have come, down West Cork side, 3 or 4 hours on a lorry coming up to us. So we want to try and rehydrate them as best we can and get them settled as fast as we can. So once they get their 2 litres of electrolytes, we follow that by 1 litre of milk replacer. So I suppose, why don't they get more milk replacer? We found, I suppose, there's 2 litres of electrolytes gone in already to a relatively small animal. It's enough to keep them going. Anything more than that in terms of milk powder going in, we found it was nearly sickening them. They hadn't settled fully, probably a bit of stress and everything with it. So what we do is 2 litres of electrolytes followed by 1 litre of milk replacer.
And from a vaccination programme point of view, what do you carry out on the farm once they arrive?
Yeah, so look, again, communication with the dairy farmer. We've asked him to do a PI3 intranasal 5 days before they come to us. So the lorry will collect calves every Wednesday. this doesn't change. This doesn't change every Wednesday. If you have 5 calves or 100 calves on that day, we'll take them provided they have their paperwork in order. This allows the dairy farmers to work back 5 days from that Wednesday and administer the intranasal vaccine. We'll give a booster to that then here on farm a couple of weeks later. We will do clostridial vaccines. We will do pneumonia again at housing, and we will do an IBR vaccination protocol as well on farm.
That's great, Chloe. An extensive health plan there from the very beginning. Grass is obviously a key part to the system. How are you managing grass on the farm to maximise live weight gains, particularly with the weather at the moment?
Yeah, look, I suppose the weather is a big challenge across the country at the moment. We're no different to it here. Growth has dropped massively in the last couple of days even. We're down to a growth of about 25. That's dropped from probably around 70, maybe 10, maybe 14 days ago. So massive drop in growth there. What we've done to try and combat that is we've actually taken out 70 of our big cattle based on weight. I suppose this will be our first draft for slaughter. So these have started a finishing diet. So they've essentially come off the grazing platform. They're receiving silage and 4 kilos of meal, or they'll be built up to 4 kilos of meal over the next coming days. Essentially, I suppose looking at the weather, there's no rain in forecast anytime soon anyway, nothing of substance. So I would say we'll probably draft another 70 and we'll get up to about 140 maybe plus cattle in the next coming weeks on that finishing diet. You know, we want to try and keep the weanlings or calves, I suppose, going in the right direction and try and keep grass ahead of them. I suppose there's a lot of stress on grass, a lot of stem being pushed up. So it has been very challenging here on farm. So our farm manager, Jack Spillane, with the help of Stephen Baskin, I suppose they're managing this as best they possibly can to try and keep grass right for the calves, but also keep the cattle going, you know, keeping their average daily gains up. So it is a massive challenge, and I suppose this is something we will be talking about a bit more and showing, I suppose, what we are doing on our open day as well.
Given the weather conditions, how are the calves being managed at the moment at their first grazing season?
Yeah, look, I suppose high temperatures are kind of bringing its own stress to calves, I suppose, or offering shelter as best we possibly can. So there's not much grazing happening during the days. If you go down the field there, anytime when the sun is up, you know, calves are in under the ditch. They're in as tight as they can to the ditch for a bit of shelter. So I suppose trying to keep grass ahead of them, that's correct for them, that they'll eat once the temperatures cool down. Some calves have come off ration. There's about 250 calves still on ration, and we probably will keep ration into them for the remainder of the summer. Just, I suppose, with grass growths declining, you know, we want to try and minimise, or I suppose reduce, not minimise, I suppose reduce intake with them as well. I suppose calves are doing well. I suppose we've weighed them there recently. They're doing about 0.82. Our male calves are doing about 0.82 since arrival. They've done 0.87 since weaning, and they're currently 182 kilos live weight. So our female calves, again, have done 0.78 since arrival and 0.81 since weaning, and they're currently 177 kilos. So I suppose in terms of performance, we're very happy where they are. I suppose the next coming weeks, I suppose the risk for us now is we're on watch for, I suppose, summer scour. I suppose what we would have seen previously is in this dry period, calves did well. It was when the rain came, there was a massive uptake of nutrients from in the grass, and then we saw signs of summer scour and maybe a breakdown there. So for us, we're happy enough at the moment. It's once the rain comes, we really will have to keep a close eye on all calves on farm.
The cattle that are being finished at the moment, what are the key management practices that are essential for them to hit the factory spec?
Yeah, I suppose ultimately, you know, we need to treat animals nearly individually to a certain degree, okay? So we don't want to start feeding animals of later maturity that are going to take time. We don't want to be giving an awful lot of ration for a long time to an animal that's going to take a long time to perform. So what we have done is looked at our maturities within animals and our live weights. So on our first draft of animals, there's a lot of early maturing with early maturing steers and early maturing heifers in that group. I suppose these animals will perform well with a concentrate and silage diet now. Their average live weight is above 475 kilos. So we should get good performance return on them for the input that we're giving them. I suppose grassland management for those that will not be on silage and ration, I suppose it is going to be a challenge trying to keep that grass right with the pressure that's on the grassland at the moment.
In relation to the farm, you mentioned there it's set up since April 2022. What are the key technologies or management practices that you think have delivered benefits for profit on the farm and also from an environmental performance point of view?
I suppose there's probably a few things across the board. I suppose some of the practical things that I think that have helped us is our genetics. Okay, so that animal that has the potential to perform very well and it reacts very well, I suppose, to inputs in terms of ration or silage at a later time. Genetics for us has been a real key performer. I suppose in terms of practicalities on the farm, soil health is a massive thing. Keeping that soil health right, ensuring that we get good response to our fertiliser. We soil sample every year. I suppose with that, we identify paddocks with P's and K's issues that are low in P and K. Those paddocks will receive slurry early in the spring through a less slurry spreading system. And I suppose we're targeting paddocks that need that bit of help. So I suppose for us, that's essential. We're keeping the clover right in all these paddocks. We have clover in over 90% of the farm now. And we also have red clover this year as well, which is returning good for us in terms of silage production. So I suppose easy enough things to implicate on farm. It's just trying to keep them right is the issue.
And how is the red clover performing that you mentioned there?
Yeah, it's performing quite well. It was sown after the harvest. It went in on tillage ground. It's now turned back into grassland. It went in September last year. I suppose weather was against us for a while. It probably should have been cut sooner than it was. It didn't get cut or grazed of any kind until probably March. We were worried about clover content in it, but it has turned around now massively. This weather's kind of suiting it actually. We've 2 cuts taken off it this year already. It'll get a third cut in another couple of weeks. So a bit of rain might help that now as well. It's yielding about 12 bales to the acre in each cut. So we're quite happy with it. I suppose again, just trying to mine that clover and try and get it to develop as best we can.
Farmers get a chance to see that on the day. You're hosting an open day on the 22nd of July at 11 a.m. What can listeners expect to see on the day?
I suppose, look, the day will essentially be an open book here to the farm. We'll have a number of topics and stops on the day. Everyone on a stop will be involved in the farm in some way, so they will have a good idea and a good knowledge of the farm and the history of the farm. I suppose some of the stops on the day will look at the financial and the physical performance of the farm, looking back at 25, looking forward to 26 and beyond. I suppose what that might look like in terms of finances for the farm. We look at calf purchasing and genetics, I suppose where we get the calves, how we get the calves, how we pay for calves. Animal health, look, animal health is probably one of the hot topics there. Is going to be summer scour. What we've done on farm to try and combat it this year and what things we have in place to try and help with that. Our farm manager, Jack Spillane, will be on a stand talking about calf rearing and labour management. I suppose how does one full-time and one part-time person, manage over 750 animals here on farm? How do they manage 440 calves coming at them in the spring? So I suppose looking at that, what tools he uses here on farm for calf rearing. We'll also look at finishing cattle in terms of spec of the animals, and there'll be animals on display in terms of, I suppose, what the future looks like for them in terms of feeding, when they'll be fed and how they'll be fed. We'll look at grassland management. Look, the drought is going to be probably a hot topic there. We'll have water quality and we'll also have a grass 10 demonstration. I suppose on the day we will also have an information village in the yard, which will have, I suppose, people there displaying their works and research from, I suppose you'll have the latest research update from Johnstown Castle and the calf to beef trial there, as well as Grange. We'll have other areas in terms of animal health. We'll have ICBF, AHI. There'll be an awful lot of people available to answer questions of any description. So I hope, I suppose, anyone that's coming with a question will go away with an answer to it. And I hope that they enjoy the day. I suppose there will be complimentary food served on the day by Dawn Meats. So hopefully the weather won't break before that, I suppose, for the day.
That's great, Chloe. A huge lineup there for the day and a lot of interest and information, particularly you mentioned there around labour management, and I think that'll be a key focus as well on the day. So we look forward to visiting the Tipperary Dairy Calf to Beef Farm on Wednesday the 22nd of July at 11 a.m.
Thanks very much, Catherine.
That's all for this week's episode, and my thanks to Chloe for joining me on the show. You can catch up on all other shows and interviews from the Beef Edge podcast on the Teagasc website at teagasc.ie, or you can listen on Apple as well as Spotify. Don't forget to rate, review and subscribe so you never miss a show. For all other updates from our beef programme, keep an eye on our Twitter and Facebook pages. Until next time, I'm Catherine Egan and thanks for listening.